Good evening. Welcome to tonight's live stream. I am going to get started in a moment. I just need to let everybody on social media know that the stream is currently on the air. Okay, before I get started with tonight's show, I wanted everybody to know about a Kickstarter from an artist who did the coloring for my book, Isis Amari's Revenge. Nick Capone did the colors for the cover for Isis Amari's Revenge, and he's got a Kickstarter going on right now that's in its final hours. So I want to present you guys with that Kickstarter that is going on right now, and it's in its final hours. And that is Purity #2, The Hunt, which is going on right now. And the project is been funded and it's got 11 hours to go. And I want to see this Kickstarter really get over beyond that finish line and Nick have enough money to continue publishing more great comics. So I'm asking everybody to head over to Kickstarter and put in a pledge for Nick Capone's Purity, The Hunt #2, and help this comic get beyond the finish line. So if you guys could head over to Kickstarter right now and pick up Nick Capone's comic Purity #2, that would be greatly appreciated. And every pledge would help this comic move just that much forward and help Nick to be able to continue on making great comics. Thank you for the super chat, Soul Survivor. I really appreciate it. He says, greetings, Brother Sean. Good to be here. Haven't been here in a while. I'm glad you're able to come to the show tonight because tonight I'm going to be talking about Ed Piskor, the comic book artist, and the dysfunctional practices of the comic book industry. That's going to be the topic for tonight's show. And tonight's show is going to be talking about the tragic death of Ed Piskor, a comic book artist who sadly thought he had to take his life due to a scandal that was emerging as related to alleged inappropriate conduct with women that he was talking to on social media in 2020. Now, according to reports, Ed Piskor was talking to a 17-year-old girl on social media. And as he was talking to this girl, he made some inappropriate statements. And this kicked off a scandal earlier this year. And as the scandal wound up getting kicked off, Ed Piskor he didn't have a really good understanding of how to deal with this entire situation. And as he was trying to react to this whole situation emotionally as people started not only making allegations as related to this 17-year-old girl. Another person said that he made a alleged sexual proposition to go out here and get a sexual favor from him in order to get the number from his agent to break into the comic book industry. These were the two proposals and allegations made by these women. And because these women made these allegations, and Ed Piskor really didn't understand how to operate as related to business protocol. Sadly, what happened to Ed Piskor, a great comic book artist with lots of great talent and a very promising career, is that he wound up reacting to this situation. And he was reacting to this situation because of everything that was going on as related to these allegations and all of the cyberbullying and cyber stalking he endured on social media. And as he was dealing with all of this cyberbullying and cyber stalking from people in the world of comics, he didn't know how to cope with this situation, and he didn't know how to cope with this situation. And as a result, he wound up leaving a note after taking his life. And Ed Piskor, after taking his life at 41 years old, he wound up dying. And again, we lost a truly great artist. And the main reason I believe that we lost this great artist was not only due to the cyberbullying and the cyber stalking, but also because Ed Piskor really didn't have a good understanding of how to do business as a comic book artist. Now, when it comes to creative people like myself, because I myself am a writer and a screenwriter, and I also have written my own comics like John Haynes at Death's Door, I understand that I am a creative person, but I also understand that I am a business person. And when it comes to comic pros out here, you have to understand one principle. You are a business, and if you are a business, you have to carry and conduct yourself in a professional manner. This is something many comic pros, while they say that they're comic pros, do not understand. Even the cyber bullies who stalked and harassed Ed Piskor, they didn't understand that this is a business. And since it is a business, what you have to do is learn how to carry and conduct yourself as a business person, and you have to operate in a professional manner when you are out here in the world, and especially when you're dealing with other people in the comic book business. And acting in a professional manner these days, you have to understand one thing that sadly Ed Piskor was never talked about to or told about the business world. We are in an era of Me Too, and in the era of Me Too, you have to understand that in this era, we are under a standard of what is called trust and believe. And with the standard of trust and believe, all a woman has to do is make an allegation, and that allegation can basically put a man's professional reputation, his personal reputation, and even his freedom at risk. And a man has to understand that he has to operate with a protocol when he's dealing with people and interacting with people in regular life at places like Comic-Cons and places like social media. Because when you're out here, you have to understand you are your business, and you have to protect your business and your personal and professional reputation, because this is how you are going to get and keep getting work. And this is something that all comic pros really need to understand. You are a business, and as a business, you have to look out for you. That's something that I learned way back in 1992 when I saw Justice Clarence Thomas having to deal with allegations from one of his former co-workers, Anita Hill. And as he was dealing with these allegations of harassment from Anita Hill that were meant to derail him from becoming a Supreme Court justice. I remember at 18 years old understanding that I needed to have a protocol for dealing with women on the job. And what I'm sad to see is that almost 30 years later, many comic professionals don't have a protocol. And not having a protocol, this was one of the things that led to Ed Piskor basically winding up in this situation, because the first rule of business, after understanding that you are a business and you could possibly wind up in a situation in this era of Me Too where you could wind up with in a situation where you have to deal with an allegation costing you money, is that you have to, again, set a boundary for yourself when you're interacting with the public on social media and in real life. That's something that I operate on because I understand that I have to set a boundary for myself on social media and in real life. And understanding that protocol, part of that protocol is that I have to have a standard for professionalism. And that standard for professionalism is understanding that when I interact with the public, I am going to maintain what I call professional distance. Now, professional distance means that, yes, I'm going to socially interact with the public, whether it be on social media or in real life. But with professional distance, I'm going to keep everything professional as related to my interactions with someone. That's a major thing that's related to the way I operate as a business person who's running a publishing company and a person who is on social media. I understand that you have to maintain a professional distance when you're interacting with people in the public. Now, Ed Piskor, again, he was a very talented artist, but sadly, he didn't understand this at all. I mean, he didn't understand that when you're interacting with the public, you have to maintain your professional distance and make everything about keeping everything professional. And the reason why you want to keep everything professional is because there are a lot of opportunists out here looking to get an advantage by trying to malign your name and your reputation, especially if you're a successful person like Ed Piskor was when he was alive. I mean, Ed Piskor, again, here was a guy who had won awards for his comics, like the hip hop comic, and had gone on to get work at Marvel with the X-Men Grand Design book, and was further going on to create other projects that were going to net him really big advances. And when you're in that position, you have to protect your assets by maintaining your professional distance. And you have to understand that there are opportunists looking to go out here and get something going for themselves. And that's sadly what he wasn't looking for as related to, I believe, his social interactions with these female artists. I mean, with these female artists, he didn't understand that you have to maintain a professional boundary. And that's another problem that I'm seeing with a lot of comic pros, is that a lot of these guys, a lot of them are what I call simps. And again, a lot of times when it comes to simps, whenever they get the attention of a woman, what they don't understand is that you have to maintain your boundaries, maintain your professional distance, because a lot of times what will happen when you get involved with women, what they will do is create he said, she said situations. And the last thing you want is a he said, she said situation. A he said, she said situation can get you super jammed up because you are dealing with a situation where it's her word against yours. And if it's her word against yours, basically that's a situation where you can put yourself in a situation where you're going to be dealing with a possible scandal like Ed Piskor was dealing with, or in a professional situation, you're going to be dealing with a possible sexual harassment lawsuit. And that's why you want to really, again, maintain those boundaries of professional distance. And you want to watch what you say on social media and what you say to people in real life. You really want to watch what you say to people, because what people will do is try to take what you say to them and try to use it as an opportunity to create some controversy for themselves. And in the worst case scenario, they will be looking to create a scenario where they could possibly get a lawsuit going for themselves. This is what people will do if you don't understand proper business practices as related to dealing with the public, especially women in public. If you don't understand what to do, you can wind up getting jammed up, because again, this is a he said, she said situation. So whenever you're dealing with people, you really want to watch what you are saying to people, and you want to keep everything professional. Because when you're out here, again, I'm going to repeat it once more, you are your business. You are representing yourself as a business. And when it comes to your business, you need to be all about making sure you protect your business so that you can continue making money and you can continue making that paper. That's what you want to do as a business. You want to make sure that your business assets are protected. And that's what Ed Piskor wasn't really thinking about, as he was a comic artist, because he was caught up in he's just a comic artist. But no, you're not a comic artist. You are a business, and you've got to protect your business assets from all types of workplace predators. This is something I talk about in a nonfiction book I wrote called Stop Simping in the Workplace. And in Stop Simping in the Workplace, I talk about all of the predators in the workplace that are looking to undermine a man to keep him from being able to make a living. And I talk about this because, as somebody who has worked in job readiness and has a degree in business, I'll go out here and lay a foundation as related to business to let people know how to protect their assets. And again, this is something that sadly Ed Piskor wasn't really thinking about as he was on social media. He just thought, oh, I'm sitting here talking with some female fans who write comics. And yeah, you can talk to people about comics, but the whole thing is you have to make it about business. You never go out here and get it personal, because when I listened to the alleged statements that Ed Piskor made, it was clear to me that nobody really talked to him about business and boundaries. And that's how this whole situation was an opportunity for these opportunists in comics news and comics media to try to create this firestorm of controversy around Ed Piskor, trying to make him into a so-called predator, when in actuality, what I just saw was a textbook case of what happens with a workplace simp. Usually with workplace simps, these guys, yes, they're very gifted and talented, but they just do not understand that you have to draw lines as related to the workplace. And when you're dealing with someone who is underage, you really, again, want to maintain your professional distance. You want to really watch what you say to an underage person. And in many cases, when it comes to an underage person, you really, again, just want to keep it very professional. And you want to go and insist that, okay, I want to talk to your parents or things like that. You want to set boundaries for yourself. And you want to make sure that all of your communications are up and up. And you want to make sure there are records of your communications. That was a mistake that Ed Piskor made that really put him in a bad situation by reacting and getting emotional. One of the mistakes that he made was he got emotional and deleted his social media. No, you never delete your social media, because while she was posting screenshots of these allegations of statements, you needed to have all of your records to show the entire conversation in context. And one of the things that I often tell people in videos is that whenever you're dealing with people, especially women on the job, you always want to make sure you have documentation and records, because it's paper trail that basically shuts down a lot of these women as related to the allegations that they make. If you want to shut down many of these kinds of women, what you want to do is make sure that you have documented records of any sort of social communication that you have online. And you want to make sure that everything is documented. I mean, that was the thing that you always want to do. This is what I tell people in my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace. But whenever you're dealing with women on the job or girl or anywhere, you want to make sure that there's documentation. And you also want to make sure that you have witnesses, so that you have, whenever an allegation comes, you have records to show, okay, this is what I did. This is how I did it. I kept things on the up and up. And you want to make sure that everything is on point, so that whenever somebody comes to you with an allegation, you can have records of everything. And those records are the thing that are going to protect you, because you're looking out for your business. And again, looking out for your business, because this is how you make your living. That was the mistake that Ed Piskor made, crapping where he ate. I mean, one of the things that I understand from even before I wanted to go out and do comics, again, this is when I was in high school, is to never crap where I eat, and to always make sure that if you're dealing with women in any sort of professional situation, you're dealing with them professionally and only talking about work. You never get personal with the women in your job. You never crap where you eat, because if you crap where you eat, what's going to do is make a mess that messes up your life. And Juwan makes a good point. Yeah, a grown man shouldn't be talking to any underage kid. I mean, if you find out that's the case, I mean, my whole policy is I'm just going to block you and move on, but I'm going to keep those records in place, and keep those records in place to let people know, okay, this is what I did. I cut off contact once I found out this person was underage, and cut that contact off in a professional manner by saying, I cannot engage with you because you are underage, and leave it at that. And if they come with an allegation, we can go and subpoena the records. And again, the records will show evidence that this allegation is completely false. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that there are, again, documented records. You don't want to run and get emotional, because what these people want you to do is start to panic and get emotional. What these people, in these social media, these comics people in social media, these people on YouTube, they want you to start running and scrambling to go out here and panic and scrub everything. But when you do that, again, you're incriminating yourself. No, when you're out here, you have to understand, as proper business practices, you want to keep all that documentation in place. And as you're putting that documentation in place, what you want to do is start contacting your lawyer. And as you contact your lawyer, when somebody makes an allegation like was made against Ed Piskor, what you want to do is contact your lawyer, because if they make allegations and they start printing this up on social media, what you have is a nice, juicy case for a slander lawsuit and a defamation lawsuit. That's what you have as related to this, because you just can't make allegations like many of these women in the Me Too movement used to do. No, what you have to do is, if there was a crime committed, you have to bring a police report. You just can't come out here making a claim and saying, oh, somebody did something to you, because that is defamation and that is slander. No, what you have to do in these situations is you have to prove that something has happened. And the way you prove that a crime has possibly happened is you file a police report. The police report is an objective statement from law enforcement that says that a possible crime has happened and that an investigation is being done. That is what a police report substantiates. You just can't come out here making claims, because if people make claims, they can be sued for defamation, and they can also, if they are working for many of these comic websites, they can be sued for slander. But sadly, Ed Piskor didn't understand that because he was panicking around these allegations. And as he panicked, he wasn't critically thinking, because a critical thinker would have been sitting there saying, okay, you made these claims. Well, what I'm going to do is go out here and file civil lawsuits because you have basically made claims without substantiating them. You have made allegations without a substantiated claim, and without substantiated claims, you cannot go out here and make these statements. And Ed Piskor had a very good case for a civil lawsuit for defamation and slander against the people in the comic book industry who made these claims and formed up these mobs. I mean, he had a very good case because he can say that this whole case of them filing, going out here and making these allegations cost him 2 jobs, the art gallery job that was $75,000 and a publishing deal. I mean, he could go back to recoup those losses if he were alive. Unfortunately, Ed Piskor didn't understand this because he was caught up in his emotions, and he was caught up in his emotions because he was feeling about his art, but he wasn't really thinking about his business. And if you think about things from a business perspective, you understand, okay, they're making allegations, but you're going to file a countersuit and file a countersuit because this is how you, again, push back on these people as related to their social media mob, because social media mobs don't have any power at all. No, we are, again, while these people, while these women love to make things about the trust and belief standard, we are in a country under rule of law, and under rule of law, you have to prove your case beyond the preponderance of the evidence, and the preponderance of the evidence basically proves that this case is basically slander. And again, slander because you're saying something to go after somebody's professional reputation 4 years later. I mean, that whole case, again, is a textbook case for slander and defamation of this man's character. And that's the whole thing that happened because of the business of Ed Piskor, sadly, having learned the dysfunctional practices of the comic book industry as related to business. Because when it comes to the comic book industry, sadly, it's so far behind the times as related to business. And this is something that I learned watching a Perch video today. I mean, one of the things that I believe led to Ed Piskor winding up in this whole situation is that there are no business standards in comics the way it is in other forms of entertainment, like movies, television, and trade publishing. Because when it comes to movies, television, and trade publishing, there is a protocol. And especially in trade publishing, there is protocol, and there's a protocol for things. You just can't come out and go and have a business thing where you're just casually talking to each other. No, you have to have a business protocol, because in trade publishing, you have to go through proper channels in many cases if you want to get your book published. And the same thing needs to be happening with comics, because as I learned about the Ed Piskor situation, and I learned from watching Perch's video about the just disturbingly dysfunctional business practices, I mean, there is no uniform protocol, because most things are done by who you know, not a process of learning what a person knows. And a lot of times this leaves you wide open. It leaves you wide open because this is the kind of stuff that leaves you open to a sexual harassment lawsuit. And what happens with these comic artists or these comic editors is that they start having these informal meetings. And again, in an informal meeting, you're going to leave yourself wide open to a sexual harassment lawsuit, because it's, again, a he said, she said situation. And from what I've heard, that there are people talking about they were making these backdoor deals where they were allegedly there were guys making alleged sexual favors in exchange for seeing comic art or seeing somebody's stuff. And again, that's a bad place for a dude to be in, because if you're working for one of these companies, you're basically putting your company on the hook for a nice, big, juicy sexual harassment lawsuit. And you would think that after everything that prominent celebrities and big time executives went through with the Me Too movement from 2016 all the way till now, you would think that comic guys would understand, you need to really watch how you move out here. You really need to watch how you move, because making the wrong move could basically put not only you in a jam, but it could put your company on the hook for a bunch of money. Because if you're working for a company like a Marvel or DC in an editorial position, or even one of these small indie companies, guess what? The company is liable if you wind up making one of these statements and one of these claims, and one of these women who are saying that they're an artist say that they got this type of indecent proposal. That company could be in a worse situation than the Ed Piskor situation, because this could open that company up to a huge scandal, and not only open it up to a huge scandal, but open it up to a big lawsuit for sexual harassment, which is a he said, she said situation. And again, you don't want to have that kind of situation, because that's a situation where somebody's going to be getting a 6 or maybe a 7-figure lawsuit as related to your company. And again, with these women who were a part of the Me Too movement, this is what they were looking for, getting these kinds of settlements. And again, this is why you want to really think about your business practices, and you want to have a business protocol for your business. You really want to have a business protocol as related to comics. And I believe that one of the problems with the industry right now is that it's so insular. You have all these guys thinking about, oh, we're going to meet up at the Comic-Con. We're going to meet up and talk to artists at places like bars and places like that. No, you want to really meet in an office. You want to be in a professional setting, and you want to be in a professional setting where there are witnesses and records. You want to be able to have documentation. You want to be able to have witnesses who can corroborate the story of the time an individual is in your professional space. And you want this there because this is how you're going to protect your business. And again, even though these comic people are freelancers, this is a business. And again, you want to protect your business. You want to protect your business because this can do damage to not only your professional reputation, it can also put you at risk. Because again, in this era of Me Too, you are not only dealing with possibly your professional reputation and your personal reputation, you can possibly also be dealing with your freedom. And as a freelancer, you can, in some cases, if you're working like Ed Piskor, you could wind up being liable for something. So you really want to watch how you move. And again, really want to watch how you move as related to things and business. You need to make it focused on business. And again, this is the problem I'm seeing with the comic book industry. And again, Ed Piskor's death basically highlighted this. I mean, we're not really having a business run. And that was shown to me with the whole milkshake scandal. The milkshake scandal basically showed me a workplace environment run by a group of simps. And again, one of the worst people you could have on your job is a workplace simp, because a workplace simp thinks on his emotions, thinks in a dysfunctional manner, and again, acts on his feelings, and grows out and hires people based on covert contracts where he's thinking, oh, I will go out here and hire this woman because she's attractive. And since I hire her, she will feel obligated to go out with me, not understanding what you're establishing is quid pro quo. And quid pro quo is the foundation for sexual harassment. That's the mistake that a lot of those editors at Marvel made. They make the mistake of being these workplace simps. And again, that created the milkshake scandal. These workplace simps basically hiring women not based on the merits of their qualifications, but hiring them based on their looks or an opportunity to get a date. And again, that's a dysfunctional business practice because a smart business person who is about business and is about taking care of business, they understand, okay, when we're on the job, we need to go and keep it extremely professional. And you want to keep it professional because this is about your personal reputation, your professional reputation, and your brand as a business. Again, a lot of comic artists really don't understand the business aspect of this, and the business aspect is an important one. You are, again, a business, and you have to act like it's a business because this is for you is not just about creating art. No, it's also about making money. And this is a part that I know a lot of comic artists don't want to think about, or writers don't want to think about. They don't want to think about the business part. But when you are out here and you are working independently as a freelancer like I am, you got to think about your business, and you got to think about your business because you're only going to be as good as your last gig. And you have to understand that you're only good as your last gig, and you want to maintain your professional reputation so that you can go out here and start not only picking up other comic gigs, but you want to be able to be having such a strong professional reputation that you can start picking up trade publishing gigs and possibly even take it to the next level by picking up some either storyboard gigs for TV and movies like the late Mark Bright did, or you want to go out here and possibly pick up some screenwriting gigs. And the only way to start advancing up those ladders is you've got to understand that got to understand how to do business in the comic book industry. And that's the whole problem I'm seeing with this whole situation is that a lot of people don't understand that it's business. No, for them, it's something that they do because it's based on their so-called passion. Unfortunately, that passion has led to a lot of simps basically letting people into their business and letting these people come into the business based on how they feel about them. And as they come into the business on how they feel about them, what they don't understand is that you're letting somebody come in and try to be an opportunist. And again, opportunists are looking for opportunities to advance themselves at your expense. And that's what happened sadly in the case of Ed Piskor. I mean, he was an artist who was really gifted, but when it came to business, he really wasn't on point as related to his business. And this is how these predatory opportunists came at him and basically took advantage of the situation because he wasn't really thinking about his business. Because the first thing you do with a minor is once you find out they're a minor, you gotta block them and move on because you have to. And then as you're talking to them, you want to keep everything professional so that when there is a record, okay, we've got a record that shows once I found out this was a minor, I shut it down. And once it's shut down, there's nothing here that they can use to say that he was propositioning anyone. That's what you want to do because you want to make it all about the business. And again, that's what people are not really understanding because this could happen to any professional who doesn't understand what they're doing, so-called comic pro, because comic pros aren't thinking on a business mindset the way other people in other publishing businesses have to. I mean, when it comes to novelists and screenwriters, we have to really think about our business because we understand that, again, you're only as good as your last gig. And the whole thing to keep getting gigs is to make sure that you're focused on your business and you make sure that you're focused on your business. But if you find out there's all sorts of people, you never really get too personal with them. No, the people you get personal with are a separate group. I mean, the people who you get personal with are separate. And that was another thing that happened to Ed Piskor, is that he did not confide in his support system of his family. He didn't confide in his family and understand that he had family to support him. I mean, you have to understand that when it comes to the internet, a lot of these people on the internet are not as powerful as you think. These whisper networks, these cancel culture mobs, like and woke mobs that Gabriel has just talked about. What's going on, Gabriel Bradley, and what's going on, One Full Boss? Glad to see you both here. You have to understand these people are not as powerful as you think. No, there are not as many of them as you think out here, because when it comes to these so-called cancel culture mobs, a lot of them I found basically are sock puppet accounts where it's the same guy with 4 or 5 different accounts, or they use those accounts to make it look like they're a mob. But when actuality, you start really digging into it, you find out these accounts have no subscribers, have no followers. They're all a bunch of phony baloney. And usually when you start doing some dirt, like I do, when you start digging up into their backgrounds, you find out some of these channels, like I have a lot of YouTube trolls who like to come to my channel and start stuff. You find out this person has no content. This person has no views. Again, sock puppet account. And sadly, Ed Piskor, as he was out here, nobody really gave him that guidance to understand that there's a lot of people who are out here making fake accounts to make it look like they're a mob. But in actuality, it's just the same guy with 12 other accounts. And he's trying to troll and make it look like he's bigger than he is, but he's not big at all. No, when it comes to the sock puppet accounts, that's what these guys do to create their cancel culture mobs and these woke mobs or these whisper networks. These people have no real power except what you give them. And sadly, Ed Piskor didn't understand this because he didn't have anybody there to give him any sort of guidance as related to things. And again, he had nobody there to teach him things about being professional as related to his career, or give him a background as related to how to navigate the publishing business and navigate situations like this. Because had he had somebody like myself who has over 25 years of writing experience, over 25 years of studying the entertainment industry, and has a degree in business and has 10 years of publishing experience, I believe that Ed Piskor, if he had gotten that advice, he would have been able to navigate that scandal. But that scandal was based on the really dysfunctional business practices of the comic book industry, and the dysfunctional practices of the comic book industry really, again, are a bunch of people who really have no understanding of how to do business. Because, again, in the business world of trade publishing, people don't make these kinds of allegations. And in the professional world of other business, they don't make these kinds of allegations, because those allegations would lead to civil lawsuits for defamation and slander. And those people know they would have to deal with consequences. However, they know that many of the males in the comic book industry are simps, and the simps don't really, because they don't understand business, because they are emotional. And again, these guys love the characters, but they don't have a good business background, and that's what really messes them up. One Full Boss has a question. He says, Sean, would you be against the idea of hiring underage talent, such as how Todd McFarlane hired the teenage Liefeld at Image Comics? I would have to wait till he turns 18, because when it comes to business, I want nothing that is inappropriate. I want to make sure everything is legit. I want to make sure that everything is documented. Yeah, you may have the talent, but I'm going to wait. And I'm going to wait, and I'm going to wait till it's legal, so that I don't wind up getting fiscally jammed up. Because again, if you're out here, I'm liable for whatever happens to you. So I'm not going to hire an underage person. I'm not going to even interact with an underage person if I know it. I mean, I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to walk away because this is a lawsuit waiting to happen as related to a professional situation. I mean, when it comes to business, you really want to protect yourself, and you want to protect yourself because you don't want to have somebody coming at your business and making allegations that oh, you did this, you said this. You want to make sure your paperwork is taken care of, and you want to make sure your paperwork is taken care of, and you don't want to have to deal with a scandal of any kind. And when it comes to business, you want to keep it professional. That's what you want to do. And again, you want to make sure that there's a paper trail. You want to make sure that there's documentation. And if you're meeting with people personally, in some cases, if you can do it, you want to record that person. And you want to do this because this is how you protect your assets. This is how you protect your whole business. Because again, you are your business, and you are a business entity because you are out here as a freelancer. Again, sole proprietorship. So you got to understand, you got to look out for yourself. And that's something many comic pros or aspiring comic pros need to understand. You want to keep everything as professional as possible, because this is how you make your money, and how you eat is how you live. So you got to take care of your business, and you want to make sure that your business practices are on code, because if you don't keep them on code, what people want to do is get you off code. And they want to get you off code not just because they want to so-called get an opportunity. They want to get you off code because they want to get information that they can use as leverage against you. And that's basically what happened, I believe, to Ed Piskor. I believe what happened to him is he got in this situation with these women or this underage girl, and they were looking for an opportunity, the same way some are on the casting couch looking for an opportunity to come under the table into the business. But the whole thing is, you have to be able to shut that down by saying, look, I don't know anything about that kind of, I'm not even going to get involved with that kind of stuff. No, you shut it down. And even if you have to block the person, again, this is just not worth taking a risk. Again, you don't even get involved with women like this because they look to make stories and allegations. And again, you want to make sure that if you are talking to someone, again, it's all about business. And again, business with records and documents, because even if the person calls themselves deleting their Facebook chats, you still have your chats. And again, you have other records like receipts and things like that. Again, you want to have that paper trail to show, okay, everything that I've done is on the up and up, because I've had artists coming to me talking about they want jobs and stuff, but the whole thing's like, keep it professional. And again, you want to make sure that you have a clear protocol for dealing with people in business, and make sure that your business is following proper business practices and proper business procedure. That's what you want as a comic book professional. And when I look at the industry, it desperately needs a standard for all the publishers, similar to the Comics Code, for submissions. This is a standard I believe really needs to be implemented, so that you don't have people going out here making allegations like were made against Ed Piskor. What we need are a series of protocols for submissions. I mean, this is what trade publishing has as related to queries from publishers and literary agents. There's a protocol we have to follow. We have a protocol as related to things where you have, when there's a query, you have to send a query letter. Again, documentation that says, okay, this person sent us a submission, and after they sent a submission, they are dealing with our associate editors. The associate editor is looking at the samples from your scripts, the samples from your portfolio, and once we deal with that, what you're gonna do is then have a contact where they're going to meet, where you meet this person either online so that you have a recorded record, or they meet at the office where you have a female out there with you and have witnesses. Again, you want to have all of these things in place to protect you, so that there is no situation where you get jammed up. Again, if you have proper protocol, again, this basically shuts the door on any allegation, because what's happened to the comic book industry is that it's basically become a gynocentric environment filled with a lot of gossip. And sadly, a lot of the simps, as they let the women into the comic book industry, they have not been leading the comic book industry. And what's happened is they have turned it into a gynocentric environment where they use rumors and gossip like that is used in the Whisper Network to deny talent jobs. And they also use it to keep talent from being able to come in, and then also use it on guys as related to allegations of harassment. Again, these are things that are done because there is no protocol in place from editorial at these companies, no standard for submissions, no standard for quality. And it really shows in a lot of the comics where I'm seeing art that is really looking rough and unfinished in a lot of these books getting published. I mean, that's an issue for another video, but the whole thing is I'm seeing so many books with really rough, unfinished art that would not pass my standard. No, I have a higher standard than this, and a higher standard because this rough, unfinished art really wouldn't have passed my standard. And some of these stories that really have uneven storytelling and just really sloppy pacing, again, slipping through the cracks because there is no standard. And again, no standard. And again, because we have these dysfunctional business practices as related to editorial, dysfunctional business practices that basically have really done damage to the comic book industry. The comic book industry has suffered because they don't have a standard for business, a protocol for business, and again, having a proper standard for business. This is something that is important. If you are running a publishing business, you want to make sure that you have standards in place, and standards are the thing that really shut down the gatekeepers, shut down the whisper networks when you have standards in place, because the people with the gatekeepers can't really run things if you have your standard for business, like I have here at SJS Direct. When it comes to SJS Direct, I have a standard for my publications. And when it comes to my publications, whether they be my comic books like the John Haynes at Death's Door comic, or they are my books like the ISIS series or the John Haynes series or the Esteem series, and all of the books on the SJS Direct imprint, there is a standard for everything. And again, a standard where everything is consistent, because if you look at all the books, they're all fairly consistent as related to standards. And again, this is how I operate. And again, I don't see that in the comic book industry right now. And I don't see it because of these dysfunctional business practices where we have people just going out here and just meeting in places like meeting in bars. I mean, from what I saw in Purchase video where he talked about, I mean, you never want to meet in a bar. You never want to be drinking because you're not in a place where you need to be sober. And again, in this era of Me Too, this is how you wind up in situations like guys like Harvey Weinstein, because again, this is a he said, she said situation. You never want your professionals who represent your company out here going to bars to meet with people. You don't even want them at the Comic-Con meeting with people. No, you want them meeting at your professional office, or you want them to send you their submissions, whether by email or in a PDF, or send them by regular mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope. Again, you want records, you want paper trail, you want something there that will say, okay, this is how we deal with people, and we deal with everyone the same way. You want everybody dealing with everyone the same way, because that's a business practice that lets everybody know that they all are going to be dealt with in the same way, and they're all going to be dealt with in the same way, because this lets people know what the rules are. And again, this is how you keep your standards. And again, you really want to have standards, because standards are how you keep yourself from destroying your business. Again, I will repeat it once more, because this is a business. And again, you don't want to get personal in your business. because if you get personal in your business, this blurs the lines. It keeps you from having boundaries. And when you don't have boundaries, you wind up in situations where, again, you create these he said, she said situations. And in a he said, she said situation, in the court of public opinion, they're going to go with the woman. In the courts of civil court, if you are not really smart and have your evidence, if you go there and it's just your word, they're going to go with the woman. So you really want, as a business person, to make sure that you have all your records. You want to make sure everything is on point. And again, when I look at the comic book industry, again, when I hear about, all these dysfunctional business practices, I mean, this is why you sadly wind up in situations with guys like Ed Piskor, because they don't understand that they are a business. Again, this is how you make your living. This is how you make your money. This is how you are going to eat. This is how you're going to pay your rent. This is how you're going to pay your bills. And if this is how you're going to eat, pay your bills, and pay your rent, then you want to make sure that you are protecting your assets, protecting your money, protecting the way you make a living. And in this era of Me Too, again, the rules have really changed. And again, sadly, many comic pros don't understand how the rules have changed as related to how you go out here and move in this business. The rules have completely changed. So you've got to understand that when you're dealing with people, especially women on the job, you want to, again, make sure all of those women are off limits. I mean, that's something I talk about in my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace. I mean, I talk about that extensively in Stop Simping in the Workplace. And you can get a copy of that book on Amazon.com. I'm going to drop a link because I want you guys to have this book. I mean, this book in digital format is only $2.99, and it has basically saved a lot of dudes' jobs and careers. And I get a lot of men who tell me they were grateful to have this book because it basically saved their career and it helped them have a blueprint to be able to set a course for their career. I mean, this book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, you can get it on Kindle right now, and I have a paperback version as well on Amazon. And again, this book has really helped out a lot of folks, and it's really helped a lot of guys, again, be able to save their careers and keep them from winding up in bad situations like guys like Ed Piskor sadly wound up in. I mean, one of the things that happened with him is that, yes, he was a talented artist, but sadly, he just didn't understand the business. And when you understand the business, you understand you have to really watch how you move in business, because things have really changed from the last 30 years. And they started changing with the whole Clarence Thomas situation with Anita Hill. And a lot of men don't understand how much it has changed from those allegations from Clarence Thomas dealt with when he was on the U.S. Supreme Court to what men are dealing with in this era of Me Too, because the era of Me Too basically changed the game, and a lot of people took advantage of that situation with things like cancel culture mobs. And again, cancel culture mobs can only have power if you allow them. You have to understand there's a way to survive a cancel culture mob. I made a whole video about that because I had to deal with that in August of 2019 when I was dealing with black men who were upset about me talking about passports and them getting involved with foreign women. And that was a situation when, again, I lost a lot of my Patreon support. I lost 75% of that support, but I still had to move on and push back and continue to persevere, because when you're out here, again, you are your business. You are your only way of making a living. And this is something a lot of guys have to understand. And one of the lessons you have to learn from the whole Ed Piskor situation is this whole situation of just talking to random anybody on social media. You got to be very careful about that. I mean, one of the things you have to do is really just look at the background, because I get a lot of requests on places like Facebook. I get a lot of requests on Facebook all the time. I mean, and I don't answer all of them because I understand that, there's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of weirdos out there, and you have to be very careful about who you deal with. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are just, they are not what you think they are. And you have to be very careful about who you deal with. And again, you have to do vetting. I mean, you have to go out and do a lot of vetting as related to looking at their backgrounds, even looking at their ages and everything. I mean, even before you interact with people, again, you have to make sure that they're on point. So you have to be very careful because, again, if you are an artist or a creator, this is your business, and you have to make sure that you make moves that allow you to protect your business. This is something that a lot of comic creators really have to understand about the business. Again, this is about how you make a living. And again, when I look at Ed Piskor and how he sadly took his life, I mean, he took his life because he didn't have the information. And that's one of the things that really saddens me, that I never knew this guy and was able to talk to this guy. I mean, it saddens me because I understand about business. And again, I understand, I've had the experience of having to deal with cancel culture mobs. I've had the experience of dealing with bullies in junior high school and high school. And I know how worthless they can make you feel. I know how they can just make you feel like you want to just end your own life and you want to just give up and just walk away. But if you don't have God in your life, you sadly, you wind up going that route. And if you don't understand that, look, this is not the end of the world, you might have to persevere to bounce back. And you might have to persevere to bounce back because, again, this is about your survival. You've got one life to live, and you've got to make it the best life possible. I mean, you've got to make your life the very best it can be. And again, part of doing that is understanding that you are your own business. And again, in this business, there may be people who don't want to do business with you for a time, like I did with that whole passport thing in 2019. But the whole thing is, after that happened, I managed to, again, continue to push. And I managed to push, and I went from 11,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel to 17,000 subscribers and counting. And I'm still trying to bounce back as related to my poor Patreon, which is, well, 75% of its people and support. And I'm still trying to go out here and continuing to make videos and continuing to publish books. But when I look at this situation in the comic book industry, I mean, it saddens me that I have better professionalism and a protocol than what we have at companies that are making billions of dollars like Marvel and DC, and even smaller companies like Dynamite and Image. I mean, I have a whole professional protocol for artists where I ask for their portfolios. And sometimes if an artist sends me a portfolio, I'll have them do a test commission, and then I will just basically spend money just to see what their art style is like before I hire them for a job. I mean, I have a whole protocol for dealing with artists and dealing with people. I mean, there's a protocol for this because I have a professional thing. And again, I will sometimes, after I commission a test piece like an ISIS pinup or a Steam pinup or a Spinsterella pinup, it'll be the deciding factor of whether I want to hire that person or not. I mean, there's a protocol here, and it's a shame that there are no protocols for these big comic companies. I mean, that's the sad part for me, that there is no protocol. It's just, oh, well, I saw this guy at a Comic-Con. He says he's an artist. I saw this guy at a Comic-Con. I thought he was a writer, and I'm going to meet him at a bar. There is no meeting at a bar. You don't want to be in that environment. You don't want to be meeting at places off the site. Again, you want to be very careful. You want to be very careful, and you want to be careful because, again, you want to watch how you move, because this is about your professional reputation and making sure that you pull that next job. Red Star 7311 asks, do I consider thumbnails people are using more for effect? I don't really go by those thumbnails and things like that. I mean, I go by your actions and I look at your actions because those thumbnails can be stock photos. This is something I talk about in many of my books, like Stop Simping in Cyberspace, because I look at your records, I look at your work, and again, you want to look at that work and make sure that it's on point. I mean, if you're an artist, you should be able to present multiple pieces to show me, okay, this is what you do. And I should be able to go to other places like your IG or your Deviant art and find this art. I mean, this is what a professional is going to ask for. And if you can't deliver it, something is wrong, because most of the artists I see who I've worked with, they've had their work online because this is how they get work. And again, that's all part of standard professional business practices. Seasoned artists are going to want to be able to get work, so they want to make sure you see their commission work. They're not going to want to, again, just meet you at a Comic-Con. If you have art out here, you can be found, because I was a seasoned professional. I remember back about 2013, that's how I found Bill Walko's art. I remember I was just looking at art and I saw his art, and then I found out where he was, did a Google search, found out where he was, and then contacted him to do the Cyber Goddess cover in 2014. I mean, you can, if you want to go find an artist, again, you don't have to meet them at a bar or at a Comic-Con. If you've got your website, even if you've got a blogger site like I've got, people will find you and they will be talking about wanting to hire you. And when they talk about hiring you, again, they're going to be talking about price. How much is your page rate? How much do you want for a cover? That's the way it goes with me over at SJS Direct. Whenever I go to an artist, I've possibly looked at their portfolio, and when I go and talk to them, I've basically started to imagine what my characters would look like as they drew them. And when I'm talking to them, it's about price. And again, talking about price, because that's all part of a functional business practice. I mean, if you have a functional business practice, you're going to be asking, okay, how much is this? And do you take PayPal, or do you take Cash App, or any of these electronic payments? I mean, I'm not going to go look for a con at all. I mean, if you're a good artist, I can find you on places like Deviant Art. I can find you on your official website. And again, that's a proper business practice, because we're talking about the merit of the art. And as we talk about the merit of the art, we're talking about the quality of the work. Because when I look at people's work, I'm looking at their line work. I'm looking at the use of their composition. I'm looking at the form of their art. And I'm looking to see if this art is going to be a good fit for me. Because one of the things I look for is art being very clear, art being very clear about telling a story. These are the things that I look for when I look for artists. I mean, I don't really go to, again, I can't afford to go to the Comic-Cons because they're too expensive. But when I look for artists, again, it's a professional business situation. And again, this is how it operates when you are a professional. When you are a professional, it's all about making sure things are on point as related to professionalism. And this is how it runs when you're a professional, because you have professional business practices. And again, professional business practices are about making sure work is done, and work is done at a deadline on time. That is what work is all about. And that's what I'm all about here at SJS Direct. And when I heard about what happened after the death of Ed Piskor as related to the whole dysfunctional business practices, I wanted to talk about how to have proper professional business practices, because that's how I've been running SJS Direct for over 10 years, and running it to where I want to make sure everything is standard. And if I were to hire actual employees, there would be a submission process where you have to submit actual work. Again, this is not where, oh, you're just going to randomly hook up somebody for just talking to you. No, this is going to be professional and on point through and through. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream, and I wanted to let everybody know that Isis Dark Incubus is coming out on April 26th. So it'll be coming to paperback on April 26th. and you can put in your pre-order right now on Amazon.com right now. And Esteemed Horror in the Hamptons will be out on May 24th. You can get your copy of Esteemed Horror in the Hamptons on May 24th by putting in your pre-order or waiting for the paperback. And right now, John Haynes' Illuminati is now available in paperback and digital format. And you can also get Isis Amori's Revenge with Nick Capone's fantastic colors right now. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. And if you want to donate to the Cash App, you can do so. So everybody have a good evening and everybody have a good night.